Michael, last segment, we were discussing some of the teams who have had the best off seasons to this point. And so the natural follow-up is certainly, okay, now, who's had the worst? So as you were grading all of these teams out, what stood out to you about teams that weren't living up to expectations at this point?
Well, most of the time, teams that have bad off seasons are because they have such cap issues. For example, the Rams are a team that has one of the worst off seasons because they're trapped, right? They can't do anything. They're so prisoner to their past debt that they can't make anything come whole. They have to trade Allen Robinson and pay $10 million to flop in the 7th round just to get cap room. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's an issue. Same thing with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's really kind of structured and trapped. They had to cut offensive linemen that moved Wirth over to left tackle. The team that I found interesting are the Chargers because they did have cap room. Now, I know they have to sign Herbert to an extension, but, they really didn't do anything other than sign Eric Kendricks to help their defense. I mean, they're counting on, which is what I preached in the last block, they're counting on their younger players improving and taking a giant Mother May I step up. They're also counting on health and durability. They're counting on Slater staying healthy at left tackle, which he didn't do last year. That's probably a good reason to count on that because typically offensive linemen have durability and they stay. They're counting on Zion Johnson, their rookie guard from Boston College last year, to improve. They're counting on Corey Lindsey to stay healthy. They're counting on Mike Williams to stay healthy. See, the Chargers have a good team and they're counting on a lot of these guys to stay healthy. So they don't look like they have a good offseason. If they do stay healthy, do they have enough? Like for me, I would have signed a running back. I mean, the market's so cheap with running backs. I would have signed a big running back to go with Eckler. Mm-hmm. Now that we've got Eckler's contract not extended, but added bonuses to it, I would add another running back because I think he would help. And I would also try to help the defensive front because I'm not sure they are good enough up front. I'm not sure they have enough girth in their defensive front to stop the run, especially considering teams ran the football right down their throat last year.
Well, you're right, though. They do have the positive that they at least got Austin Eckler in a situation where he's happy enough to come back after saying that it would be a worst-case scenario for him to be in L.A. He's got the incentives in there. He's ready to work and ultimately get that next deal when he becomes a free agent this coming offseason. I don't remember when we were talking about the draft if you liked the Quentin Johnson pick. Do you like him for their offense?
Well, he's a vertical outside receiver. He's a limited route runner, but he's a big guy who could catch the ball. And they needed somebody to take, when Mike Williams went down last year, it slowed their offense down tremendously because Keenan Allen's not an outside receiver. They had DeAndre Carter in the slot. They didn't really have anybody who could, oh my gosh, we got to worry about the speed of this player on the outside. He fits their offense really well. So, I think that will help them. But I was thinking they needed more of a defense. Look, they signed J.C. Jackson to a huge contract, whether he can come back and play off of a knee. When they signed J.C. Jackson, one of the things I said was the New England wasn't really sure that his knee injury was not going to be problematic, and it proved to be the case last year. Can he come back from that? Can he cover well enough? Last year he didn't cover well enough. So I think, to me, they've got a lot of question marks, but they're counting on the player development of the coach. They're counting on their offensive coaches and their defensive coaches to really make a difference in their team because they really haven't added a lot of faces, right? Kendricks is the only guy. Can Khalil Mack play at a high level? Are they going to get that out of him? Can Joey Bosa stay healthy? I think those are really fair questions.
Yeah, and especially for a team that's playing in a division that we expect to be competitive and needs to take steps forward, a win total set at 9.5. They need to get double-digit wins. And a team that lost in the postseason with the fashion that they did against the Jacksonville Jaguars, they don't want to hear that they're taking steps backward. Let's talk about that Jacksonville team, though, because they're also on your list as teams with the worst off seasons.
Well, again, they're a young team. They're counting on their coaches to develop this young team, and they really didn't do a lot to kind of improve their team. I think the Calvin Ridley thing was huge, but they did that last year. They didn't do that this year. He comes in their offseason. I think that's going to help them tremendously. It gives them that other receiver to go with them. But I'm concerned about their offensive line. They lose Cam Robinson. They have to draft Harrison. They got to get him on the field. Walker Little played right tackle. Are they going to have enough depth in the offensive line to do what they need to do? And are they good enough at tight end? I mean, we call Ingram a tight end, but he's really not. He's an inside receiver. And then defensively, I think that's got to be the question mark. Can they get these players to play at a high level? Can they improve? I mean, Devin Lloyd last year, first-round pick, started well. They benched him, then they put him back in the game. They got to get him to play at a very high level. a lot of things with the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to come down to player development. Can they improve this team with the young talent that they have? Are they going to be able to add other players? I mean, I love JaMychal Hasty. Is Bigsby going to be able to replace him as the second back to ATN? We'll see. But that, to me, is the concern. And then they did knock off one of the things that always bothered me last year was, they signed Brendan McManus, the kicker from Denver, who got cut for salary cap. I think that's a huge get for Jacksonville because I really never trusted that kicking situation last year.
So a team that clearly you have a lot of questions about coming into next season, but another one with higher expectations of 10.5 game win total coming into this season. They are an odds-on favorite to win their division, and the rest of the division is shown to be relatively poor. But do you think that they will answer some of those questions and play up to the expectations, or no?
I think it remains to be seen. Look, they were so inconsistent last year. They didn't start well. They finished well. Did they finish well? Well, they finished the second half against the Chargers well, but they were getting blown out in the first half, and then they went to Kansas City, and that really, when you watch the tape of that wasn't a game. They're not there yet, right? And I think the South will be a little bit more competitive than it was last year. I think their offense can be really dynamic. With Ridley playing, if he plays to the level that he played last 2-3 years ago, before he had the depression issue, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, he missed a lot of time in Atlanta because of depression, but then he got suspended for betting. So he's really been out of football for almost 2 years. So they got to get him up to speed and get him faster. I love their offensive skill. I worry about their line, and I worry about their defense. Mm-hmm. Because, last year at the end of the year, they were fortunate to win some of those games down the stretch. Can they be that fortunate? The schedule's going to toughen up on them a little bit.
All of the reports, at least, about Calvin Ridley is that he seems really, really motivated, excited to be out there. So he could be a potentially huge boom should he live up to his potential and the type of player we know that he can be in this Jaguars offense. The Green Bay Packers, we talked about the Jets being one of the best off seasons. On the flip side, the Packers ripped the Band-Aid, moving on from Aaron Rodgers, which seemed like a necessary evil for them to move on to. Jordan Love's going to be the quarterback of the future now, but what else concerns you against this Packers team?
Well, Packers did very little in free agency. Again, this is going to be, we got to get healthy, right? We got to get healthy. Are they going to be good enough at right tackle? Are they going to be able to handle that situation? Is Bakahari going to be able to play left tackle and stay healthy? They did really nothing other than what they do in the draft. They really made no moves to kind of improve their football team because, they rely so much on the draft. They rely so much on young players coming in. And when you do that, you've got to be really good you got to be really good in player development, and we'll see. It's easy to develop younger players when you have the great Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, but now they don't have either one of those players. It's going to be a challenge to me, and so they're off-season, but their mindset is always about player development. It's never about signing veteran free agents. That's not who they are. Think about this, Stormy. There was a time where Marshawn Lynch, when he was in Buffalo, he wanted to get traded to Green Bay. There was a need, and Ted Thompson just, that's not who they are. And so a lot of the guys that worked in Green Bay at the time, I remember talking to them, and they had a chance to trade for him. They turned it down. John Snyder ends up trading for him, and Seattle ends up really helping their team. But I think, to me, their mindset in Green Bay isn't to go on to free agency. They want to develop young players. Now they got a young quarterback. I worry about their team being too young. Mm-hmm. The worst thing you want to be in football is too old and too young. I think they're too young. I think they have way too many young players and not enough veterans to help lead the way.
Yeah, quarterback with very limited starting experience. The receivers that are going to be going out for him, all very, very youthful, a couple of them in their second year. And you look even in the draft, it seemed like they really targeted a few positions and used them for multiple selections, specifically in the defensive line, trying to bolster that area. Lucas Van Ness, Colby Wooden, Carl Brooks, same thing with receiver and the guys that they grabbed in tight end. So we'll see how that development ends up playing out. But I think this first year with Jordan Love at QB and without Aaron Rodgers in the fold might be a little bit of an uphill battle. Why they are the longest shot.
Especially the first half of the season.
Yeah.
I think the first half of the season is going to be Green Bay. It's going to be hard to get this together. New tight ends, new receivers, new quarterback, new system. The game's moving really fast. I think it's going to be a hard one. And plus, we know this. LaFleur is a disaster opening day coach. He's gotten beaten both opening days, and it's not been close.
Plus, we just don't know how good of a coach he really is. So I think that it's going to be a big test, not only for this young team, but a younger head coach trying to figure out his identity without an MVP quarterback. So we only have about a minute left here, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you don't like the Baker Mayfield move. I know that much, at least.
I mean, who does, right? Other than Mrs. Mayfield and everybody else. I mean, look, a lot of this is salary cap too, right? They had to dump a lot of guys off. They have no cap room whatsoever. They're paying a price for going all in. And the price isn't going to end. They've got some good players on their team, but they've the offensive line, which was not good last year, they're kind of reconstructing that this year. It's going to be a challenge for them. It's going to be a hard year for Todd Bowles.
Well, and it's interesting that two of the teams on this list each did win a Super Bowl in the last handful of years. And you said, you used the perfect word, paid the price, right? And so now this is what you have to deal with moving forward.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.